Yesterday I came and we did a rehearsal, and I was super nervous, and I had a script. Oh, it's back to me. Let's see what happens if I do this. I had a script in my hand, and I was shaking, and I started to hear my own voice, and it was kind of that Charlie Brown, like, but it's not really a good sound. And then I started to listen to the paper moving, and I thought, ooh, I could record that. It would be the most beautiful. If I slow it down, it might be insects walking. Maybe I could transform it, and it would be wind. But for me, that's just where my mind goes. I work with sound, sound artist, electronic musician, teacher, and really what I do first and foremost is listen, and that's where I get excited, that's where I get pleasure, that's where I feel creative. And as my other friends and colleagues look, it's just always been sound. And I think part of that is because sound is it's connected to the gut, travels through vibration, it tickles our skin. Oops, sorry, speaking of sounds. But I feel it emotionally, and I've been reading lately a little bit about the neurological connections and the way that our eyes process process images slower than our bodies and brains process sound. But for whatever it is, I feel sound, and it's where I always go. I made this, I never have a medley, but I made a kind of 2-minute medley of recordings that I've made around the world, from the top of the World Trade Center to a hummingbird to a tiny, 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 tiny tree hopper that I recorded with a colleague named Dr. Casey Fowler-Finn. But I'm going to play you in 2 minutes. I'll come back and talk for a couple minutes afterwards. I'd encourage you to close your eyes because it just makes sound, in my experience, come up, and it kind of heightens your senses, but I also never want to tell people what to do. But I hope you enjoy it. So for me, an interesting thing is just to have experienced that all together and to have not really knowing what each one of you is processing. And I think with sound, especially if it's without image, there's this part of our brain that just goes to feeling and maybe to memory or maybe to projection or maybe to fantasy. And as I've done projects and mostly installing these as parts of installations, the feedback that I get is always so surprising. And what I've come to realize is that so many artists will say, oh, this person doesn't understand my work, or my work is about this, you must understand this. And what I've learned is that what other people experience is way more important and, for me, rewarding than what I put out and think this is what you should experience. And just as an example, years ago, I had a public art piece in London with close-up recordings of moth wings and bird wings, and there was a man who would come day to day, and the security was kind of following him. And finally, they came up and said, "So, sir, what do you think?" He said, "Oh, I grew up in Brazil, and I haven't heard the sound of my childhood since I was a young boy. I'm going to bring my family back tomorrow." And that had, I had these ideas in my head of composition, of music concrete, of John Cage, of these beautiful little microphones, but none of that really mattered compared to what he brought back to it. My clock is out, so I'm going to leave you with one last recording, which is maybe a little bit more generic. It's just 30 seconds of water that I recorded in Wyoming. But again, I'm curious, even if we can't all talk, does one of you hear something that excites you? Does somebody think of drowning? Does somebody think of swimming? Anyway, we'll start. We'll see if it goes there. Anyway, thank you very much.